Rick, I am so grateful. I really am. So pleased that you could take the time and we could actually be here together. And I'm so excited to hear what you've got to share today, because I know you've got such a rich background, and I definitely want to hear some about your story and what's led you to this place to being the legend that you are. We're here now in heaven in Bali, and it's exquisite. We're looking out over this beautiful valley and the mountains and the pool that's all natural, mountain water fed, no chemicals, and the whole thing is just absolutely exquisite. And obviously you're running as a retreat. People can use this as a retreat center. It's a boutique homestay, and just a beautiful, beautiful place. And I'm thrilled. It's my first time. Well, I was here yesterday, briefly, but really, essentially, my first time actually here, seeing this. And when I walked out onto the patio there, it just took my breath away. And it's extraordinary what you've built. And of course, there's Namaste, your spiritual shop, which is doing amazing things and supporting people on their journey. Mm-hmm. And there's the eco village that you're part of, building and developing and supporting and helping that to happen, just down towards Sukawati.
Yes, in that direction.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
And I've been out there and seen that, and it's amazing what you're building there. So it's such an honor for me to be able to have this time with you, and to really get a sense of, I guess what we're looking at is what's actually going on in the world. Let's kind of get objective about, because a lot of people are kind of looking at the death and devastation and destruction that's being caused to our atmosphere and the environment and the oceans and the carving down the rainforest and going, it's terrible. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of people who are really consciously, intentionally causing massive healing and restoration and regeneration. There's a lot of good things happening too. And I guess a lot of people I talk to are kind of holding their breath, wondering which way is it going to go. Is humanity going to make it on this earth? Because a lot of people are going, there's no way, we're not going to make it. My own sister said that to me recently. She said, there's no way, Pat, we're not going to make it. And of course, there's other people who are committed to making sure we do make it. And so I'd love to get your thoughts on that and hear a little bit about your story as well. So Rick Pursell, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm excited and honoured as well, and I really support what you're doing. This is an important element that needs to be brought out and disseminated widely so that people can have hope for the future. At the moment, we're going through the most extraordinary human metamorphosis, like we've never experienced ever before. And the changes are leading to confusion and chaos and destabilization. And I think I mentioned to you before, I liken it to, I always look at nature to see what is the metaphor that is reflecting on the human family.
Okay, how do you mean?
Well, the butterfly starts its life as a caterpillar, crawling along the ground, foraging, and then just prior to its transformation, it gorges itself on leaves, just fills itself. If you've any part of a gardener or talk to any vegetable gardeners, it's the caterpillars that eat all the leaves.
Sure.
And what they're doing is filling themselves up. And the metaphor is that that's what humanity's been doing. Wow. We've been greedily foraging on consumerism and materialism, on the resources of that precious planet Earth.
Wow.
And we've just been feeding off that. And now the caterpillar goes through its process of creating a chrysalis, and within that chrysalis virtually dissolves to quantum soup, knowing that it is dying. Right?
Yeah.
But the butterfly, whose elements are in there, is conscious of its awakening and its emergence into a beautiful, beautiful insect that can shine love and beauty on the world and fly free from the entrapment. And I see that as a perfect metaphor for the human race.
A beautiful, beautiful metaphor. All right, I think we're done here. That's perfect. That is just exquisite.
Yeah, and so we as a human race we're in the chrysalis. Some have already emerged.
Sure.
Some are still gorging themselves, and
Yep.
some are in the state of flux.
Yep.
And much of humanity is there now, believing that we're going to die.
Yep.
Perhaps your sister believes there's no hope for humanity.
Mm.
There's no hope for anybody, and only sees the death knell.
Mm.
But others in this chrysalis, other human beings, can see this has to happen. This dismantling of all of these elements that don't serve humanity.
Mm.
And look at them, our financial system. Right? We're a debt-ridden planet.
Yep.
Our food production and the bastardization of natural foods.
Yep.
Our political system.
Mhm.
I won't go too far into that one. Right? Our religious structures, our education system,
Yes.
all facets of life
Yes.
that don't serve humanity
Yes.
and don't serve the greater good are being systematically dismantled.
Mm.
Right? And that's the bigger picture. They have to be dismantled in order for something new, something better
Mm.
to emerge. Because the two they can't coincide because they're diametrically opposed.
So, on that, it's a fascinating idea, and what a beautiful metaphor. I mean, just I'm filled with new hope in this moment, going, we are dying, and it's okay.
Yes.
Not like we don't want to die, as the caterpillar might be in the chrysalis, going, what's happening to me, right? And not and knowing that maybe part of it knows, part of it doesn't know. Who knows what a caterpillar knows? But right now, I know. Butterflies are coming, right? I'm butterflying. We're all
Yes. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. It's and nature has shown us
And
this.
exactly. It's not like some crazy idea that we've had. It's like there's evidence to support it. Every
Yes.
gardener knows, as you
Yes.
said.
And the snake is another good example. The snake sheds its skin.
Yes.
It's no longer valuable to it, so it latches a part of it on it and pulls out, emerges perfectly whole,
Wow.
perfectly natural and healthy. It's just shed a skin.
Yeah.
And that's how I see it, that we're shedding these skins that don't
Wow.
serve us. And we will, as a core, as a sovereign being, we will survive this
Mm.
and develop and create something better.
Wow. So on this idea of, the system as it is, the society that we're part of as the modern developed world, and all those different facets of that, and the systematic deconstruction of that, and the building of something new. I guess, I mean, do you see we're all involved in all of that? Or, because I know some people who are very much like down with the system, and they're on a big mission to pull things apart and destroy things as they are, and that's a necessary, and the destruction's a necessary part of creation. And I know people who are very focused at creating new structures, new, communities, new cultures, new ways of living. I definitely want to hear more about that. And then, I kind of see my role, I guess, as a messenger of hope, going, this is what we've got, and this is what we could have, and come on over, right? It's
Yep.
Jump in, the water's fine.
Yes.
So what do you see as, and maybe this is a little bit premature, but I think it just leads in perfectly from what we've just been talking about, as the roles that anyone who cares could take on to actually make a difference. Because I've got this idea that each of us, I mean, it's, the state of the planet is no one's fault in
Correct.
particular, and it's everyone's responsibility, right, to do something about this. So if someone was to consider that they have a real impact and go, actually, I make a difference, and like Gandhi said, be the change, and if they were to consider that making the change for good might actually be more easy and pleasurable and enjoyable and rewarding than they've ever imagined, what are some of the roles in this whole game, in this transformation, this metamorphosis that people can play to go, right, well, I'm like this, I want to do this, so this is my part in all of this?
Yes. Great question. The bane of the human family is separateness.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like we have an implanted suggestion that we are separate. And this has been the root cause of our destruction of the planet, of our destruction internally within families, within nations, within communities. Whenever we feel that we're separate from someone, there is the capacity to cause harm. Right? And when we feel lovingly connected, like a brother and sister, would you ever consider harming your sister?
Of course not.
Right? So it doesn't even come into your psyche. But the moment we're separate, there is a capacity for us to cause harm. And this is what I see as the root cause of the human family. That this is a prevailing influence that we need to get over. And the first step, as you alluded to, is that we need to take responsibility, all of us. You know, I supported the Occupy movement and still do, with one proviso.
Okay.
We are not the 99%, and they are not the 1%. There's more separateness. You know, if you fight separateness with separateness, you're going to get more separateness.
Sure.
So we are the 100%.
Beautiful.
We are all responsible, collectively, from generations to generations, what we've inherited as beliefs and ideas and ideologies. We have to collectively take responsibility for this and say, I have played a part in this. And we all have.
Of
You know?
course.
We talk about preserving our environment, but I remember as a kid, there's some things that would be damaging to the environment.
Sure.
So taking responsibility is the first thing.
Okay.
And then looking at how are we separate? And the root cause, Gandhi said, be the change. He
Sure.
didn't say do it, he said be it. And we're human beings, not human doings. So we have to assume the beingness
Yes.
of not being separate, whole, unified, this shared consciousness, one human family. We're all brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
So we take that idea that we're not separate. I don't have a better religion than yours. My house is not bigger than yours. You've got something I want and I'm going to take it. That we all need to collectively resolve this. And in order to do that, we need to unify the human family. Right? Then we need to look at what are our behaviors on a practical sense of thing. What can I do to contribute to a better world? And it comes inwardly. First, we need to raise our consciousness to believe that we are part of this unified field, and
So
that we are all part
what's
of
that
this.
mean? I just want a little one on that, because we hear a lot about raising consciousness, raising vibration. I mean, on a practical level, what's that about?
It just means being more aware
Okay.
of our thoughts, our programs, our conditioning, our beliefs, right? Ideas we have about ourselves and other people, judgments. Just being aware of those and transmuting those into. I'm an old hippie, so it's been within me for a long time. You can transmute fear into love. It's a choice. Right? We can go down that path of fear, or we can choose the path of love. And in the 60s, that was the breakaway movement,
Yeah.
that the hippies.
Yep.
And we experimented in music, in alcohol, in drugs, in sexuality, communal living, in the peace movement, growing our hair, not going along and robotically obediently following what the status quo said,
Sure.
or our governments or whatever. And that was the forerunner of this movement. We were laying some foundation there.
Wow.
So we need to come back to those core values. And I believe that we don't need to drive ourselves back to the Stone Age. What we do need is to take indigenous wisdom, traditional ways of being that were in respect and honouring the earth and each other, right? And marrying them with modern day technology.
Okay.
So we don't have to all become vegans or vegetarians or whatever, although that's a good start, right? But we need to integrate some of that wisdom that was so profound and use our modern resources, not the depleting resources, but the renewable resources,
Sure.
to bring those ideologies into the world. Permaculture is
Wow.
a classic example.
Okay.
So people how they can start on an individual basis is they can start adopting some of these ideas. Grow some pot plants with vegetables in it.
Anyone can do that.
Anybody can do that. Make a little garden.
Start with basil.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's delicious. It grows anywhere.
Yes. And systematically remove ourselves from the contagious systems that no longer serve humanity. Move out of the major banking systems. Right? Move away from genetically modified foods, foods that have sugar, preservatives, additives. These are all things that we can do that will enhance our own consciousness and put us in a system and a place where we can move forward with clarity. And for me, the simple system of addressing our behaviors. The behavior of separateness needs to be transformed into something that can be actually doing this. So if I'm saying I'm feeling separate from you, because maybe you've done something to me or whatever, then forgiveness is the answer. So we need to learn to behave in a forgiving way. Right? Or if you're in a situation where it's uncomfortable or you're going through some trauma, how about compassion and understanding? These are all things that we've done, and it takes bravery. It takes a bravery to really confess to our own situation, but also to let go and forgive somebody. So bravery is an element, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, and all the time being humble as well. Right? Humility brings us, levels the playing field. I don't believe any one person is better than another. I think we're different.
Sure.
Right? There's huge differences, and we can celebrate those differences. But I don't see anybody as better. And so the act of humility. And these are all behavioral changes. They're not ideological changes. They're not a spiritual or religious change. They're an internal change that we can make a decision. Today I'm going to be a little bit more compassionate. And you know where it starts? With us.
Of course.
So we just start practicing those behaviors within ourselves. I need to be a bit more understanding about why I do these things. Right? I need to forgive myself for carrying this pain and upset and disharmony around with me for all these years. So we practice these tangible benefits of these beautiful behaviors, and they come from the heart. They're all an act of love.
Absolutely.
Right? And appreciation is probably at the top of it.
Sure.
When we can sit down and say, I'm really grateful. Things are happening that I'm not comfortable with, but I'm grateful for what I've got.
Wow.
And what I have is enough.
Wow. And when, when I meet you, when I first met you, when I met you again recently, and when I met you again today, and I'm sure when anybody meets you, I immediately felt the embodiment and the practice of what felt like, just a beautiful way of being. Of that, I felt that humility, I felt that gratitude and that appreciation, those, all those beautiful attitudes and traits and ways of being. I look to you as a model of those things, and I go, wow, I just feel that. And this week I've been really deeply and personally challenged to look at how much gratitude I'm expressing in my life on a moment-to-moment basis.
Yes.
And it's been absolutely profound. It's amazing that we're having this conversation, because literally just in the last few days and this week, I've had that challenge, and I've taken up have you seen the complaint-free living, complaint-free world?
No, I haven't seen that.
So it's the 21-day challenge, and actually you get a little bracelet, which I left, and I took it off for a shower this morning, and it was hanging in the bathroom, and I was too excited to come here, and I left it there. But the idea is you wear a little bracelet, and every time you express a complaint, you take the bracelet off and put it on the other wrist, and you're back to day one. And it's like, how long will it take you to get to 21 days of not complaining at all, ever, for anything? And they say it's not a complaint if you're speaking directly to the person who can actually do something about it, with a solution involved, and there's not the negative emotion on it.
Yes.
But if I'm talking to my wife or to you about something that someone else did, and we're not in a position to do something about it, and I'm focusing on the problem, not the solution,
Yes.
then that's absolutely a complaint. And I did day one really well, got to the end of that, woke up the next morning, and I'm like, 21 days straight, no problem. And all the dogs opened the gate and came running into our bedroom, and my wife said, Patrick, the dogs are here. And I was half asleep. I said, what do you want me to do about it? I went, and changed my brain. First words out of my mouth, right? Literally. So it was a really good wake-up call because I thought I express a lot of gratitude and I've got massive appreciation for my life and for what's happening, and I didn't think I was a complaining kind of guy.
Right.
And here I am on starting over again. So it's a beautiful practical thing that we can do to practice these qualities. And what I've found is while we're trying to avoid complaints, it's very difficult to do, but while I'm being present and grateful for this moment, it's almost impossible to complain when you're filled with that appreciation.
Yes. When you're operating from your heart and not
Yeah.
the head, the ego mind will find one of the classic examples of the ego mind, not beyond fear and separateness and superiority. And there's a subsets of those, which is judgment, cynicism, criticism, self-abuse. All of those are subsets of fear.
Sure.
And the ego mind is judging.
Yeah.
Right? And yet we can, from our heart, can make an observation. I've observed this as a behavior. That's not a judgment when we speak it from the heart. Or we can judge in a very
Sure.
harsh way.
Yeah.
And I found that if we find ourselves judging, and we all do it, right, to transform that judgment into appreciation. What can you find that you can appreciate about this person, or this situation, or the dogs, right? Just find something you can appreciate. In about 10 to 15 seconds, that whole judgment's disappeared.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
And everybody can do this.
Absolutely.
This is not rocket science. We don't need, we don't need a savior to come and save us. We don't need UFOs to come and deposit all the high-tech stuff that will get us out of this.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming.
You're saying we're the ones we've been waiting for.
We are the ones we've been waiting
Yeah.
for. We have to do this. This is exactly what Gandhi meant. Be the change you wish to see in the world. And it's up to us to be conscious enough to be aware of these situations and then change our behavior towards it. And sometimes we have to do a bit of cleaning out because our behavior is rooted in a process where behavior starts with a perception. So we have five perceptions, 5 senses,
Yep.
plus a 6th sense of intuition.
Okay.
And we perceive things. And as we reinforce that perception, it forms a perspective.
Okay.
This is how it is from my point of view,
Sure.
or my viewpoint. And if we reinforce that again, it becomes a belief. I now believe this, right? And this can be negative or positive.
Sure.
If you look at the world today, we're seeing this imbalance,
Yep.
these belief system that people are better than others, their way is better, so on and so forth.
And a belief, that's just anything that anybody's certain about.
Yes.
Right? If I say this is the way it is because I can see it and that's obvious, maybe that's how it is. Maybe that's my belief.
That's how it is for you. It may not
Okay.
be for somebody else.
Gotcha.
This is the picture of the
The whole
6 and the
game.
9.
Yeah.
You see a 6 and I see a 9. And we can fight each other and say, look, you're wrong here. Right?
I can
In
see very
essence-
clearly.
Yes,
Right.
but in essence we're both right from
Yeah,
our
of course.
perspective.
Yeah.
So having formed that perspective, it gets reinforced as a belief, and our behaviors will emanate on what we believe.
Of course.
That's the root of it. So we have to change our behaviors,
Wow.
right, in order to find a better way of looking at this root. How do I change my behaviors? Well, because I believe this. So it's not just enough to change our behaviors on their own. We have to look at what's the driver behind this.
Wow.
It's because I believe this, right? And there's the internal journey. You need to be conscious. You need to be brave enough to go within.
So I'm curious because I thought, and I'm just so appreciating this profound conversation. I thought we were going to talk about some practical technologies and some practical steps and permaculture and some things, water recycling and things that people can do to kind of head in this direction. And what I'm hearing is that all those practical things are good, and we're going to get into more of that in just a moment down the track. And it's who you are and how you show up in the world, in your relationships and with the people you love and day-to-day life that you're saying has a far greater impact on the whole game than any of those practical things that you do, because all those are going to be a natural result of who you choose to be.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
And that's my belief. I am convinced. I believe that. Ask anybody, and I endeavour to practice what I preach
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
Right? It's no good me saying that our behaviours will change the world if I'm misbehaving or doing something that's destructive,
Yeah.
self-destructive and destructive outside. So it's a matter of taking those behaviours on, and they become your core value.
Mm.
Right? One of my core values is integrity,
Mm-hmm.
and integrity is delivering what you promise,
Mm-hmm.
being honest and ethical, and with real live communication. So I have to do that within myself. If I want the world to change outside me, and I can't change anybody other than myself. I could coerce them, I could threaten them, but that wouldn't be willingly
We could
changing them.
try,
And as
yeah.
soon as I'm not around, they would just revert back. So our whole existence is on this caterpillar has to build a chrysalis.
Yeah.
This is its den in which to transform itself. And it has to be brave enough to know that it's going to die in that form, but it's going to emerge in another much more beautiful form.
And as you talk about integrity and compassion and appreciation, I mean, that's absolutely been 100% of my experience with you.
Thank you.
An absolute, shining example of how through practice and through choice and through just awareness of how we're being, we can come to this way of being. And my guess is that in terms of meaning and purpose and fulfillment in your life, when you're living that way, challenging, yes, rewarding, you tell me.
Richly rewarding. Richly rewarding.
So you'd say totally worth it, right?
Absolutely. My life wasn't always this way, and I wasn't always this way.
That's what I'd love to hear about, because I'm sitting here, kneeling at the feet of the guru, going, this is amazing. So what is it, before we get into any more, kind of practical technology and stuff, what's been the journey that's brought you to the man that you are, and this whole philosophy that you've been sharing with us, which is just so beautiful? Because you were London originally?
In the Midlands.
In the
Lake
Midlands.
District.
Okay. And then there was Australia, and there was Vietnam, and there's a whole bunch of... Tell us a little bit about, the key turning points on the journey, or the moments of realization when you kind of had some distinctions, or, give us some background on that brings you to this way of being, so that we can kind of, get a sense of that, and
Sure.
you can relate to that.
Well, without regurgitating all my past and boring everybody, and you.
What's the good bits?
Born on the farm in England,
Okay.
Raised on the farm in England, in a very organic way that was before organic was even in the dictionary, I think.
Well, before the chemicals were a lot of
my
those.
parents grew beautiful vegetables. We were almost self-sufficient. We had no electricity, and we had no running water, so we had to pump water from a well, and we used paraffin lights, and we raised goats and ducks and pigs, and it was in the middle of this huge big farm. It was there was a manor house, and we were in the secondary house. And my parents were both pacifist. They wanted to some degree remove themselves not from society but from city living. And so we were on this remote farm, and it was building dams and catching tadpoles, and I had a dog running free in the fields and along the canals and in the woods, and I'd bring my mum a big armful of flowers and wildflowers, and it was a beautiful childhood, just filled with imagination and freedom. And my parents allowed me to just go. I'd disappear on the weekends and all day and come back when I was hungry. They knew I'd be okay. So, and they were both pacifists, so it was a very peaceful, harmonious family. And one of the catalysts for me was that I was sexually abused by a pedophile uncle when I was 5. We were on holidays. And those circumstances stuck with me for about 30 odd years. It took me 30 years to purge that traumatic experience. But shortly after that, a few years after that, we migrated to Perth in Australia. And there was 9 months of good weather, No, England wasn't famous for its good weather. Um, there were beaches. It was an outdoor life.
Yeah.
There was so much more to discover.
Wow.
And it was a haven for a young boy, young English boy, to experience this, all that you could do outside in good weather, surfing and motor racing, and chasing girls and drinking beer in the true Australian style, sleeping on the beach.
Sounds like you fit right
Picnics, yes, yeah. And that came sort of to an abrupt halt when I turned 20,
in. Okay.
and the Vietnam War was on, and the draft was by a lottery. And I often tell people,
Hang on a minute. Hang on. I mean, my maths isn't fantastic, but Vietnam, 20.
I turned 70 this year. This is a milestone year for me.
Congratulations.
This is a beautiful year for me.
And, you know, I mean, just looking at your face, looking at your eyes, looking at the energy in your body, I'm interested to hear more about this level of vitality and energy and health and vibrance that you've got. And I would definitely come back to that because I know a lot of 70-year-olds. And I don't know, I don't know a lot of 70-year-olds. I know some, you know, and I don't know many. And certainly my grandparents, when they were that age, didn't have that level of health and vitality and energy that you've got now. We're going to hear some more about that too. I really want to honor and acknowledge. I'm shocked. It's amazing.
So, I was faced with a choice of either going to the war in Vietnam, a place that I could barely pinpoint on the map in those days, or spending 2 years in a jail in Victoria as a conscientious objector.
Oh
And
God.
my parents never interfered. I know what they would have, what their choice would have been as pacifist, staunch pacifist. And they never interfered or intervened in any way. They allowed me to make that choice. And for me, it wasn't that difficult, because what 20-year-old kid wants to rot away in some jail for
2
a belief
years is a
system?
tenth of your life,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Today I would do it at a drop of a hat.
Wow.
I would never ever engage in war.
Wow.
Never. So it was a good lesson. So now I find myself from this beautiful environment, living in Perth, beautiful parents, in the witnessing and contributing to the absolute insanity and inhumanity to man. And it's indescribable. For anybody that hasn't been in the theatre of war, it's indescribable, because you're in a state of fear 360 days a year. Right? Every moment your life is being threatened. Right? And you learn to live with that, and you have to rise above that fear. And I did. I finished up being a section commander. I had 16 guys under me, and I was leading them, and for 9 months I was working as a team with them, and we managed to go fairly unscathed. There were some injuries, and we lost some people. And I put up with that for 9 months, and then I broke with a letter from my wife at the time, who had just said, I'm leaving you, I'm going off with a guy somewhere else.
Oh,
And to this day I never saw her again.
wow.
Yeah, and that night I was just so traumatized that I took my rifle, sat outside, and just put the rifle butt on the ground and the barrel against my head, and I pressed the trigger on the first part of the trigger. And all I needed was about a millimeter to blow my brains away. I'd gone that far south. I could not see of a logical solution to this situation. So much pain, so much suffering, so much grief, so much loss, so much insanity, just bombarded. Remember, a 20-year-old kid, you know. We're not equipped with the world's best in life solutions, and that was one. That's how far south again. Needless to say, I'm still sitting here and I don't have a hole in my head.
Yeah.
Well, one of my mates came out of the tent. We were out in the boonies, and it was a bright moonlit night, where I was in a little clearing, and he saw me sitting there, and he could see what I was contemplating.
Sure.
And he, calm as a cucumber, he just sits next to me, opposite me, and looks me in the face,
Wow.
and says, how long you been here? And I said, through the tears and grief, I said, about 20 minutes. And he leant over, he took the rifle, he ejected the bullet, put it down, he said, I know you, Pursell. If you're going to do this, you've kept us alive for 9 months. If you were going to do this, you would have done it 20 minutes ago. And he was right. He was right. And in that moment, we just stood up and hugged and cursed the Australian government and the American government and the Vietnamese government. Of course, I had no inkling that I had manufactured that scenario at a core level to experience the difference between peace and harmony and the insanity of war.
Wow.
And I got the two, I got the yin-yang balance there.
Yeah, big time.
And then the next few days I contemplated what I was doing. And wow, that was really close to the edge there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to find out about life first? And then if you don't like it, do something about it? But you're still wet behind the ears, kids. You're 20. Find out about life. And that was my wake up. That was the universe whacking me over the head with the baseball bat. Wake up.
Goosebumps.
Wake up.
Wow.
And so that catharsis and that catalytic moment of realizing I need to understand who I am. I need to understand about life. Where did I come from? What is my purpose in life? What am I to do? What is the meaning of life? And that was the big wake-up call. And since that day in that jungle clearing, I've done nothing but pursue the understanding of life, of people, my own psyche, the psyche of other people, the emotions. And it's led me to this place now where I run retreats and I'm a spiritual coach, a life coach and a business coach.
Wow.
And so I look back at that now as being one of the most profound moments in my life. And I wouldn't change it for anything. If I had the opportunity to change my life, I wouldn't change that. And I've been back to Vietnam 5 times. Wow. I've encouraged Vietnam vets, go back there and purge these demons. Wow. I even walked into an ex-Viet Cong village and met people that were actually, we were fighting against in various places in Vietnam. Wow. And just embraced them. And stood there embracing this one man, and we just had tears running down our eyes. And this was supposedly the enemy's village, but they were my family. We were all brothers and sisters. So I've had some profound moments that have reinforced this actual event back then. Wow. And then it's just been a process of learning about life and sharing it. And about 25 years ago, I was studying in India with the most extraordinary awakened being that I have ever encountered, even to this day. And he passed on a transmission, perhaps, I don't know how you would call it.
Okay.
After a long time with him, he said, "You're ready." And I said, "Well, we're going for a walk." We're in Rishikesh, along a little adobe hut by the Ganges, and sometimes we'd walk in the hinterland and the foothills of the Himalayas. And thought we were going to go for a walk, and he said, "No, you're ready." I said, "Ready for what?" He said, "That's not important." And we just sat down, and I downloaded this. It was from a long line of Vedanta masters, and he downloaded this with me, and it was my purpose then to give that away, and that's all I've done for the last 25 years. Wow. In business, in coaching and retreats. That's the gift that I was given away, and my whole life now is about being of service and giving back. Wow. Giving back to the world. It's been an amazing life.
Extraordinary.
It really has. And one that I cherish. I wouldn't change anything. And I actually believe the best is yet to come.
Wow.
I really believe that. I'm the eternal optimist. I see the dismantling of these structures, these ideologies being dismantled, and I get glimpses every now and again of this new world that we're creating. Not new world order, but a new world that is based on unity and transparency.
Beautiful.
We recognize the unity of the human family, and all things, are connected. And science is now starting to see this, quantum physics is starting to see it, the sages of old are starting to see it, and I see this juxtaposition of these three separate elements: spirituality, the arts, and science coming together.
Wow.
And we all agree that yes, we agree on the existence of we are of a spiritual nature. We are of a unifying energy, and that we're all of that same nature, and everything emanates from that.
Wow.
So why would we want to harm each other?
Of course.
Why would we want to argue and fight with each other? And that element is showing up in, I'm seeing it in food. We grow some of our own organic vegetables here.
Yes.
Life school, my children go to an extraordinary alternative school. Education is being dismantled, so the forerunner of the new form of education is emerging. When I'm coaching in business, the emergence of the new business paradigm, the conscious business,
Wow.
conscious parenting,
Yes.
conscious eating, conscious agriculture.
Mm.
All of I see them, and the eco community that we're part of
Yes.
is a model society of the integration of a lot of these things. The
Beautiful.
new school we're building is going to be based on these
Well,
principles.
let's hear a little bit more about that, because we've heard about this beautiful philosophy and way of being that you've developed. Now we've heard kind of where that came from, and this amazing contrast, this swing of the pendulum from, the most peaceful kind of existence to the most horrific kind of experience, anyone could imagine. And you're going, all right, wow, right, there's that happened and that happened, and that's kind of, and then all the other experiences, and obviously your time in India with the guru and all the other, I'm sure we could talk for a long time on some of the amazing experiences you've had in this rich and really fulfilling life in many ways. So, right now, I guess there's a few things that I see when I look at you, and I go, well, one is this beautiful appreciation and this gratitude and this beautiful way of being. And you're not just sitting by the pool sipping pina coladas and feeling good about
Frozen margaritas.
frozen margaritas. Okay, very good. So that happens, and that's not all that happens, right? You're out doing stuff as well, and you've mentioned business coaching and life and spiritual work with people and helping people, in whatever area of their life with their journey, with their development, with their own personal growth, and to be able to be more and feel more and experience more and then express more and contribute more. Let's talk about village life a little bit, because you've got this amazing thing happening, and there's some really cool technologies there, and there's some good stuff. So kind of step us through that. You mentioned education, and I know there's energy generation, and there's water, responsible water recycling and reuse, and there's some composting and permaculture, and there's a lot of really cool stuff happening there. Tell me some more about that.
Yeah. I see, it's a great question. Great. Thank you, Patrick. I see community being as a way of being in the future. The fiercely independent person is becoming redundant.
So this idea of this is my house, this is my
Yes.
yard, and I've got
Yeah.
the best neighbours have high fences.
Yes.
That old.
Yeah. That's more separateness.
Sure.
So the opposite of separateness is community. And why I live here in Bali and in Indonesia is because there's still a strong sense of community here.
Okay.
We've lost it in the West. Just
Sure.
exactly as you say, we buy a lump of dirt and we put a fence around to keep us in and everybody else out.
Then we think we own it.
Yes, and then we think we own it. And yet here, as we live here up in the mountains, the doors are open 24 hours a day,
Wow.
all the year round. There's no threat. And our staff, we go to their places, we go to the ceremonies, we see
Wow.
the value of ceremony in community, and there's a lovely synergy there. So this eco-community, Taman Patano, is a model that we're building which could be exportable.
Beautiful.
We want to take as many elements of that as possible, and have people come and look at it and say, I can do some of this.
Nice.
All right? And it has to be translated into the culture or the tradition or the geographic location.
Sure.
But it encompasses permaculture, rainwater harvesting, renewable sources of energy, proper waste disposal,
Yes.
sewerage, cleaning, eco septics and things like that.
Okay.
And we all have within some, not boundaries, but within some guidelines. We have some guidelines of what you can build on your house, on your property, what sort of house you can build. So it conforms to some degree with the guidelines. But you can put a bamboo house there, you can put an earth ship there,
Wow.
you can do anything.
Wow.
For us, our choice was to recycle a 100-year-old teakwood building
Wow.
with big posts and beautiful timber.
Yeah. And I've seen that, and it's exquisite.
Yes.
It really is.
And there's
beautiful.
some great innovative building. There's a relatively cheap house that's just finished, right, under $40,000 and it's a beautiful little house. It's got some modern trappings. It's very, very functional. And there's others that are building now. I think there's about 8 of us building.
Okay.
It's been a bit of a slow takeoff, but we focused our attention on the common area, all of which we own. As an owner, you own part of that common area.
Okay.
And so there's a reception, and then there's a cafe, and there's a meeting area down below, or a yoga shala. There's an amphitheatre, and then there's a bio pool in there. That constitutes the communal area where we'll meet.
Beautiful.
Then the houses will be dotted around, the eco farm where we'll grow the permaculture products. There'll be some animal husbandry later on.
Okay.
And nestled amongst that is my pet project, which is the Living Classroom Learning Centre. And
Tell me more about that.
We had donated to us a wooden building. We've leased the land. The building is up, the floor's in, and some of the walls, and we're just doing fundraising now to finish it off.
Okay.
The idea is for us to give free education to Balinese children.
Wow.
And we want to handpick them, the ones that have leadership skills. And we're going to focus mainly on girls and women of the village to help support all of the activities of the school and the eco farm. And obviously conscious boys will be admitted as well. They'll go to their regular school and come to us afterwards. And it's values driven.
Wow.
So I've identified about 50 core human values that we'll be addressing one a week.
Wow.
How can you bring this value in, make it your own if it resonates with you? How can you see it where it's missing in society and the damage that it causes?
Wow.
And we'll just be focusing on that. But also we'll be teaching about permaculture, about waste management, about growing our own vegetables,
Talk about
fish farms.
permaculture, I mean, because we've said that word a few times. What's that actually mean? What is permaculture?
It's really a derivative of permanent culture, or permanent agriculture, I should
Permanent
say.
agriculture.
And it's how agriculture what it was a long time ago, but it's a replication of nature.
Okay.
And it's working with nature instead of against it. So, and there's various principles. It's a very broad, very deep subject.
Sure.
But it's utilizing the way of nature to create agriculture and whatever. If you can imagine,
does it really work?
It really does
Because
work.
I mean, we've got big farms, and obviously the scientists have been able to, I mean, we've been selective breeding for a long time, crops and that's kind of selective genetics. But now we're actually getting into the DNA of plants and actually modifying them.
Yes.
That's happening, and we've got these massive, big, commercial farms with huge machinery that operate them, and we're able to produce a lot of food for a lot of people. Man, it seems like not such a bad idea. What's up with that? What's this? What's going on?
Have you got a soapbox here that I can get on? Because what you're talking about, what you've described, and there's more. Obviously, there's more different elements of that.
Sure.
But you're talking about monoculture.
Yeah, we're going to pump in tons of chemicals to kill all the pests and the bugs and
so
synthetic fertilizers.
We're spraying our food and poisoning our food. Permaculture, that is the exact opposite of permaculture.
Uh-huh.
And if you could imagine, here's your dwelling. Let's just, for instance, say you had a circular property, which is almost impossible. Your house would be in the middle, and what you would have around the immediate house would be herbs and things that you'd need initially right in the kitchen.
Okay.
And then the next circle would be some vegetables.
Yes.
Right? And then you might have some chickens. And then you might have some bushes and plants, and then you go out to actual forest. That's the sort of core principle
Fruit
of it.
trees and the nuts.
Fruit trees and whatever.
Wow.
So what you do on a smaller scale is try to emulate that. What do you need around your house initially? And then with totally organic,
Yes.
the idea that we think as a human race that we can modify nature and do a better job is pure arrogance.
Okay.
Absolute pure arrogance. Genetically modified foods are now being proven scientifically and medical that they're reducing the sperm count in young boys
Wow.
and the fertility rate in young girls.
Wow.
And so this is not the way to feed the world.
Mm.
This is poisoning the world.
Wow.
This is population reduction.
Okay. Well, maybe that's no accident.
It's orchestrated, carefully orchestrated. So what we're saying is let's go back to these principles that do work and watch what nature does, right? And follow that pattern. Nature doesn't, it's not in competition with anything. It's in cooperation. The tree that the creeper or vine takes over, we look at that and see that damn vine's going to kill that tree.
I've thought that.
And the tree
recently.
Yeah, the tree has been a welcome host to this. Use me in cooperation with it. Use me to grow and spread your flowers and your leaves and your roots and everything. So he doesn't see, it's not in competition at all. And we are, as human race have been highly competitive.
Sure.
More separateness.
Sure.
Right? So when we work in cooperation, we will use the energies and flow of nature to build our environments so that they're more sustainable and more healthy.
Whoa. That's fascinating.
Permaculture is a big subject. That's just a thumbnail sketch at it.
So we've looked, very briefly at education and specifically empowering young girls to become leaders and powerful women by looking at the values and you've said there's lots, but
Yes.
you've got 50, which I think is a lot.
Yes.
I look at if I can kind of remember half a dozen in a day that I would like to embody and live, then I'm doing really well. If I could just remember appreciation in my day, then I think I'm doing really
Yes.
well. So if we can do 50 over the course of a year, that would be extraordinary.
Yes.
And what an education, what a model. And I wonder if that's just for the young girls in the school, or that's something that could be available for everybody.
Well,
Because that's a core curriculum, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's a model. We're going to throw in the cause no harm process that I wrote about. And what we want, once we're established, we want to invite the education department in and say,
From
this is
Indonesia?
a model. Yeah.
Yep.
Look what we've done. Look at the layout of the schoolroom. There's no lines of classroom. There's nobody sitting at the front or standing at the front pontificating. Right? This is value-based education. It's self-directed learning. There's no exams, right? It's self-assessed, right? And then look what's around here, all these beds of vegetables, all healthy organic vegetables.
Yes.
Look at this little mini fish farm and this hydroponic set and this compost and this seed bank. And look at this waste management system, right? And we want them to join the dots and say, we could do this in our schools. There's plenty of room.
Sure.
Right? We find somewhere to park all the other motorbikes and start growing vegetables and moving away from the junk food syndrome that's creeping into the society. We can do that. And the other one is that mums and dads, will invite mums and dads with a Saturday farmers market. And their kids will say, come mum, this is what I've been doing. You've got to come and have a look at that.
Wow.
And then particularly the mothers will say, well, the schoolroom looks like our house and everything else looks like the compound. Join the dots. Maybe we could do this at home.
Wow.
And start growing some organic vegetables.
And it's not difficult, right?
It's not difficult. Right? So we're building a model that is, one, exportable, but initially we want to send it out with these young, vibrant, energetic young girls and guys and boys, and send them out into the community to start promulgating this idea.
Wow.
And then bring the education department, tourist department
Plan
would be
for
into it. Yeah.
world transformation.
Yeah, no
I see
reason.
what you're up to. I see what's going on
damn,
here.
I've been caught.
And wow, and beautiful, beautiful. So there's that. We touched a little bit on permaculture, being permanent agriculture,
Yes.
as being the opposite of monoculture.
Yes.
So there's no chemicals and mass single crop, massive machinery. It's local and it's the way nature intended it. So different plants growing together that support each other and the right kind of things, and not looking at pests or weeds as pests and weeds, but as all part of the
Companion planting.
companions to the whole. And it sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
What other key elements of village life need to be in place for village life to really work, for it to thrive, and
Yeah.
what else?
Well,
This is cool.
we've have 3 segments within our community,
Okay.
and they are the mind group, which attracts people who like to think things, plan things, analyze things, make a calendar, organizing things.
Okay.
Right?
That's important.
They're immediately attracted to that. Then there's the hand group.
Mhm.
People that like to build stuff, get their hands in the dirt, grow vegetables, making stuff. And then there's the heart group, which I'm currently heading up. And the heart group maintains the harmony within the community, and then reaches out into the bigger community with goodwill activities, like the school we're building. This will be our gift to our community. And we want to bring the community in. We're not building an elitist enclave.
Sure.
We want to bring the community in and the amphitheatre, and have Balinese dances and have shows, and bring the farmers round to the eco farm and say, look, you need to get rid of those chemicals. Look at the quality of this soil, and look at the quality of this grain. You know.
Wow.
So the whole idea of the heart group is to maintain the harmony, the peace and harmony of the internally, but also to reach out with these projects.
Wow.
And then as these 3 circles intercede, at the middle is the Coordination Council, and since 2011 I've been heading up and guiding that process. And the Coordination Council makes decisions based on a democratic process. We do surveys, we survey the members.
Yes.
Well, what would you like us to grow, right, for instance? And what materials do you feel that you'd like? And we have a lot of open source material on that. And then on behalf of the members, the Coordination Council is the guiding principle for the decisions that are made.
Wow.
Right? And if there's any contentions or contentious issues, they bring to the Coordination Council, and we sort them out in a very democratic way.
What a beautiful way to look at leadership.
So we have members of the heart group, members of the hand group, and members of the mind group.
Wow.
And all of that is encapsulated, rather like the yin-yang symbol. The wholeness of our community is encapsulated in the spirit of community.
Okay.
So you look at it from a circular perspective.
Wow. It's beautiful. And I guess, does it really work? Because it sounds
it's
lovely.
failure.
It sounds beautiful and, utopian and idealistic and very, positive and beautiful and all this stuff. But we look at the way the world is, and we might be tempted to think that, look at human nature even, and go, well, this is, what we've got is a result of human nature, and what we've got, some elements of our society are beautiful, other elements totally dysfunctional. And
Yes.
we look at, we've already mentioned government and education and some of our major, religion and some of our major systems that are in place right now, and they don't do it like that. Right? This whole idea of democracy in our democratic government, where people go and vote once a year or whatever, and they think that that's going to make some kind of a difference to something in a meaningful way.
Yes.
Is it work? Is it a model that's scalable beyond one small village to go, this is how we run a tribe, this is how we run an entire nation, this is how we run our, a human family?
Yes. Again, I'm optimistic. I believe it can be. I think it's more human to be loving and kind and compassionate than it is to be hateful and separate. Yes, there's a lot of that there.
Sure.
There certainly has been. And some of that's been orchestrated.
Sure.
Right? But at the core of every human being is goodness.
Okay.
And I've raised 3 kids. I've never seen any evil in any of those children.
Wow.
Right? I see the development of the ego around about 2 years of age,
Sure.
and there can be bickering and arguing and some minor fighting, but I don't see evil. Evil has to be learnt.
Okay.
It's a conditioned reaction to the environment in which the person spent usually the first 7 years,
Wow.
which is the emotional years.
Sure.
The formation of the emotion is from 1 to 7.
Gotcha.
Mental is from 7 to 14. Physical is from 14 to 21. And if you look at your own
Makes
life,
sense. Yeah, totally.
when as a child we can't enunciate anything, but we can smile
Yeah.
or pull a funny face, right? And then we start reading around about 7 usually, and start analysing and planning and able to use logic, right?
Very
And then
interesting.
around about 14, it's a little bit earlier now, but going through puberty, being more physically orientated, what we look like, how do we feel,
Yes.
engage in sports, outdoor activities. So that's a process over those 21 years of our components of emotions, mental and physical. Depending on the environment in which we were born into and brought up, we will assimilate those characteristics, those behaviours as our own, and believe that they're our own. They're not, they're somebody else's, and then go and perpetrate those outside. So it can be either a positive or negative type of behaviours.
That's a fascinating concept. Do you see that? I mean, is that part of a cycle, or is that you're 21 and you're done now?
No, you keep...
So then, because like most things in nature happen in cycles,
Yes.
right? We go spring, summer, autumn,
Yes.
winter. When we're not done, there's another spring,
Yes.
right?
It is, everything is cyclical. So at 21, all right, generally, this is wildly generalised,
Sure.
but we're in relationships, right? We might be married or in a relationship with a partner, which is going to now, instead of you dealing or looking at your own emotions, right, as an isolated case, you're now under the roof of somebody else, engaging with their emotions. So this is where emotional intelligence starts to go in. It's not how we deal with our own emotions, but how we deal with others. So at 21, we start engaging in other emotions. And then most of us make a big mess of that. And then you go through this, perhaps another cycle as you grow through this another emotional period. You find ways of dealing with it, and more logical ways, perhaps, more analytical ways of living. And then there's another span of physicality. So, yeah.
Beautiful. That sounds like a big topic. I'm really curious about that, and we'll put a bookmark in that one for now. Can we come back to that?
Sure.
So for this, I mean, just extraordinary sharing, and I guess we've looked at a whole bunch of stuff, which has been really cool. And imagine, we've recorded this, so it's really cool. So people are going to get to watch it, which is amazing. I'm so grateful. And if you are someone who is watching this, and you live in the city or you live in the suburbs of around a big city, and you find yourself, you've got a heart, you care, you love your family, you love nature, you love people, you want to see this world really thriving, you want to see people happy and fulfilled and living meaningful lives, and you want that for yourself as well. And at the same time, you drive your car that in the peak hour traffic every day that's burning fossil fuels, and you're shopping in supermarkets, and it's monoculture, and that's that whole thing, and the plastic wrapping of everything, and supply chain logistics and all that nightmare of thing, and you've got this job that you need to go to pay the mortgage and do all the things, to buy the stuff, to impress the people, and that whole game, right? And of course, short of coming out to the village and experiencing village life and being part of that, which would be amazing, and of course these villages are happening not just here in Bali but in every city in the world. There's permaculture gardens,
Yes.
and there's intentional communities, and there's eco villages, and there's eco developments, and there's green technology, and it's everywhere, right? So for someone who's going, what's the practical next steps that I can take? I mean, we've really covered, the first thing is this, who I'm being, how I'm showing up in the world. Am I engaging consistently and regularly in those emotions? Am I looking for things that are going to help me to feel angry and pissed off and frustrated or powerless or guilty or, you know, all that kind of stuff? Or am I bringing my awareness to that and going, that lives in me, and not judging it or hating it, but going, there it is.
Yes.
And what could I choose instead?
Yes.
And making the choice to go, what have I got to be excited about? What have I got to be grateful for? What have I got that I could really appreciate in this moment? So that's the first thing, and we've covered that one, which is beautiful. And on a real practical level, because I kind of look at, you know, there's been a big trend in Australia over the last, well, even we go back 20 years, and there was the Clean Up Australia, remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
And they were picking up all the plastic, and there was recycling bins, and that was awesome, and a lot of people really got involved in that. And now, you know, if you see someone dropping litter on the footpath, it's like, what? Hey, you can't do that,
Yes.
right? Put it in the bin. And that's been a cultural change that's happened. It's beautiful. And, you know, here in Bali, if you go into Denpasar or to, you know, in Jakarta and someone's dropping stuff on no one notices, no one cares. It's, you know, totally, it's not in their level of consciousness. So we've got that. And then we did, so there was this big thing that happened then, which was renewable energy. And the government were doing rebates for solar panels and solar water heating and reduce your electricity bill. And like, that's really cool, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of got a feeling though that energy efficient light bulbs and solar panels in a home and a way of living that's fundamentally not sustainable, shall we say. I mean, it's not the way we're doing society. Even if everyone had a solar panel, it's not going to last 100 years, let alone another 1,000 years, right? Let alone 10,000 years, which the way that we look at permaculture and a lot of these village concepts have been working for many thousands of years. And now we can, like you said, it's not to go back to the Stone Age and renounce our technology, but to integrate that in healthy ways to serve all life on Earth.
Yes.
And I kind of look at, you know, energy efficient light bulbs and all this kind of stuff. It's like someone who's grossly overweight going, well, I'll just have a Diet Coke and a Junior Burger instead of, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a step in the right direction, but it's probably not going to get you all the way, right?
It's not.
So what's some steps that someone can take that's actually going to, you know, get us there, if you know what I mean?
The answer is to make a fundamental shift in our consciousness. Come back again.
So you're back to that consciousness stuff
The
again.
only thing that's going to happen. And as a result of that shift in our consciousness, we will change our behaviors towards ourselves and other people and the environment, the immediate environment in which we live, the planet as a whole and future generations.
Wow.
That's all it's going to take. And we are...
You're such a hippie.
I know. Yeah. I believe we're at a critical point. Right? I honestly believe that we're at close to the event horizon.
Wow.
The critical tipping point. There's another word for it, I can't think of it right now, but where you don't need to transform 7 billion people. You need to have a nucleus that will have an impact, dropping the pebble in the pond, that will have the ripple effects that will go through that. And we're getting to that stage. Look at the amount of human protest that's going on around the world, where people are actually getting off their behinds and saying enough.
Yep.
Right? People migrating away from these systems that don't work.
Wow.
Right? And going off the grid and eating healthily and things like that. It's been estimated that there are 2 million registered groups on this planet doing goodwill work.
Wow.
Right? Registered groups. Now, it doesn't count what I'm doing here. It doesn't count what the yoga barn's doing in Ubud.
Sure.
It doesn't count what a restaurant that's gone vegan, right? These are registered groups. Now, I belong to a few of those, but one of them has now 43 million members.
Wow.
And that's AVAZ, A-V-A-A-Z. And
A-V-A-A-Z.
AAZ. They're the biggest social reform movement on the planet. I've met the guys. They were down here in Ubud.
Really?
26, 27-year-old indigo guys and girls.
Wow.
And they've built this movement that it's through petitions, but they can change and influence political decisions around the world.
Wow.
Right? That's just one of the 2 million groups, and it's got 43 million members. We are not even aware of how much activity, goodwill activity is going around, because
Media doesn't
the
cover
media
that.
doesn't count that. It's not even exposed.
Yep.
But what's happening now is we are now synergizing these efforts.
Yep.
We're coming together to
Wow.
operate as a body of concerned, caring, compassionate human beings.
Wow.
Instead of being fragmented, this group over here doing their little bit, and Greenpeace over here, and blah, blah, blah,
Yeah,
we're
sure.
now starting to work in cooperation as a
Wow.
concerted effort. And that has a huge impact on this tipping point, on this ripple effect. Right? So, and it's reversing the pyramidal way of government, of businesses, is being reversed and empowering the people. Right? John Lennon sang about it, power to the people.
Sure.
This is the answer, and people can become empowered when they step into their own personal power, the power of the heart, the power of the sovereignty that they have, and remove themselves from the matrix of control, the holographic deception, remove themselves from that and say, I am and we are, right? And there's extraordinary power in that.
Wow.
Extraordinary power. And when there's no external force that can do this. We can't wait for the Messiah to arrive or the sudden arrival of a new technology. It's up to us to transform it. We've created this.
Sure.
Right? We're all coming back 180 degrees. We started off saying we have to be 100% responsible, right? So we've created it. Who's the best person to uncreate it and create something different, something better? So it comes back to the individual again. A fundamental shift in our consciousness, right? And a fundamental shift then of our behaviors, which will naturally follow.
Yeah.
Naturally follow.
Sure. Wow. Thank you
Come
so
a full
much.
circle.
That's amazing. I'm not at all surprised, and I'm so, so grateful.
And
so
I'm not
impressed.
a guru. Don't ever call me that again.
Okay.
I don't see myself as a
what's that
guru, a
about?
teacher, a master, because every time we put something between us and all that is, the source or whatever we want to call it, we disempower ourselves.
Okay.
And one of the alarming observations I make about the New Age movement is they're all purported leaders and people giving up their own sovereignty in order to follow this person, this
bit of
ideology,
guruism.
this form of yoga, this,
Yeah,
that.
sure.
It's more separateness.
Wow.
It's more separateness. And we have to divest ourselves of all separateness and say, I am, we are, we're all connected. We're all part of this essence, this life force essence that flows through us. And when we connect to that, yes, we'll have more energy, we'll have more life, we'll have more passion, we'll have more drive. Right? It's the inner element, the inner essence that we need to connect to and totally acknowledge that's what I am. I don't need to look for anything outside of myself.
Wow.
There is nothing outside of myself.
I feel it. So tell me, where can I go? Where can anybody who's watching this and listening to this and enjoying this and this resonates, where can we go to get some more information, to continue on this journey? Have you got some resources, some support?
Well,
what can we do?
Rather than be contradictory, I would say don't go anywhere, go within. Right? But you're giving me an opportunity for a little plug here.
Sure, please, yeah. If you've got something to share that'll be valuable.
We have a website called Spirituality-Bali.
Okay.
There's a wealth of information on that. There's a description of our retreats on that bring us to the heart, move us out of the head to the heart. And another retreat we run which is called Experiencing Your Authentic Self.
Oh, wow.
Who we are beyond the masks.
Yes.
When we're standing vulnerable, naked before the world, this is who I am. They're very powerful and we're getting some wonderful results.
Wow.
And in between that we do life coaching, spiritual coaching. Next year we're going to be launching some really avant-garde business, conscious business retreats here.
All right.
Got some good interest in that.
Perfect.
And that is not only the organizational consciousness, but the personal consciousness.
Yeah, of course.
Because if the CEO who we're dealing with is unconscious, then that's going to reflect all the way through the organization. So, yeah, and we have a beautiful homestay here called Heaven in Bali, heaveninbali.com. People come from all over the world and immerse themselves in this nature. And
It is just
I
exquisite.
get to meet some extraordinary people.
Yeah.
And yeah, just share what I have learnt along the way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Consciousness is the key.
Consciousness is the key.
Raising our own personal consciousness. I don't see any other. I don't see any other tangible, practical solution. And yes, we can go off the grid, and yes, we can become vegans and vegetarians, and yes, we can build more sustainable communities. But if we haven't got the consciousness, we'll be just replicating the same old stuff. So we have to be conscious and aware of this is not working, what does work. And now we've got enough on that planet now to show us what. We've got everything we need to resolve poverty, the lack of education, the lack of medical facilities, the lack of clean water, the lack of education. We've got all the money. There's trillions of dollars floating around this planet.
Sure.
There's enough people that, given the opportunity, would step up to the plate, following their life purpose and their passion. And we don't need anything more. We just need a fundamental shift in our consciousness and the resultant behaviors that are flowing from that. That's all.
Rick, I'm so grateful for this time. It's been inspiring and challenging to me personally, and I don't think anybody could watch this without feeling the same way, really feeling your heart for this, but also being personally moved to go, all right, this is my part in all of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
And finally just want to say what
Sure.
you're doing is what the world needs.
Wow.
You
thank
said,
you.
where do they go? Right? People will come to you to see what is going on the planet, what individuals have done. You're capturing all of that as a model. Somebody will look at it and say, well, I'm not sure about that, but I could do this. Right? So this is your gift to the world.
Wow.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.